This mausoleum is the resting place for several members of the Mackey family. You may be wondering who the Mackeys were. Without them, Reedsburg may never have survived its early beginnings. The Mackeys played a huge role in preventing Reedsburg from becoming a ghost town. Things were looking bleak for the dwindling population of Reedsburg. The year was 1852, and the lifeblood of the community, the dam that powered the crucial sawmill and the grist mill, was gone. No more lumber for building purposes could be cut. No more grain could be ground for flour. All because David Reed got stubborn. Before Reed arrived in the area, the Willard brothers had been floating logs down the Baraboo River to their sawmill in Baraboo from the government-owned forests around Laval. One of the first things Reed did when he arrived here was to build a dam across the river. The dam was used to power a sawmill and a grist mill, which he also built. A short time after the dam was built, Reed decided to no longer let the Baraboo logs pass. He wanted to use them himself. The Willard brothers paid a visit to Reed and demanded that their logs be allowed to pass. Reed refused. Tensions mounted between both communities until the resulting conflict was settled when the U.S. Marshal came to town and ordered the removal of the dam. Reedsburg citizens became very angry with the decision, and they considered jailing the Marshal, but cooler heads prevailed and the order was carried out. Now, without a dam, the sawmill could no longer cut lumber necessary to build houses for new settlers coming to town. No settlers, no growth. Times were hard and about to get harder. David Reed's dream of building a town was slowly flickering. Heavily in debt and without income from the sawmill, a last-ditch effort was made to revitalize the dam and the mills. A company was formed to sell stock, but the venture failed. The future looked bleak. One of Reed's original investors was his brother-in-law, Solomon Mackey, from Broome, New York, Reed's hometown. Mackey was concerned about this investment and was disheartened by the loss of the dam and the failure to revitalize it. But Mackey had an idea that would solve everyone's problems, which included three of his sons, Joseph, Safford, and Ebenezer. Two of the brothers came to Reedsburg the next year in 1853. Joseph was 31 and Safford was 22. Joseph also brought his wife Cornelia and their one-year-old son Frank. Joseph brought two assets with him, a law degree and $6,000 in cash. He used the money to upgrade and purchase the two mills and buy up vacant property. He set up his law office while Safford ran the two mills. The following year, their brother, Dr. Ebenezer Mackey, who went by his initials E.R., moved to town and set up his medical practice. In 1860, the last brother, James, and their parents, Solomon and Cynthia, also settled in Reedsburg. Joseph was able to acquire prime real estate, which shows on the map as the Mackey Addition. The Mackey Addition number 2 and the Mackey Addition number 3. Now that the mills were producing lumber and flour, new settlers started to come to town, buy land, and build houses. One of Joseph's primary services was in writing legal titles for the lots he was selling. Since new settlers often needed financing for homes and businesses, a bank became a priority. Joseph, along with David and Eli Rudd and James Lusk, started the Reedsburg Bank in 1867. Since railroads provided vital services to growing towns, bringing the railroad to Reedsburg also became a priority. Joseph was a charter member of the Baraboo Airline Railroad, a group dedicated to bringing the railroad to the area. So on January 1st, 1872, the first train arrived from Chicago. The line eventually stretched to St. Paul and became better known as the 400, based on the distance between Chicago and the Twin Cities, as well as the time it took to make the trip, 400 miles in 400 minutes. Since there was no newspaper in town, Joseph helped start the Reedsburg Herald, and he served as one of 3 editors. The paper published from October 1856 to February 1858. The American House was a hotel located on the northeast corner of Webb and Main. Joseph owned the hotel from 1865 to 1873. It was raised in 1928 to make way for the Chevrolet garage. Joseph and E.R. were two of the petitioners to sign the formal request that was submitted to the Missionary Committee of the Columbus Presbytery to establish the Reedsburg Presbyterian Church in town. Dr. E.R. Mackey also dabbled in the hotel business. He, along with David Rudd, built the Mansion House in the 100 block of Vine Street in 1855. Mackey sold his portion in 1860 when he moved to Catskill, New York. The building burned down in 1900. The replacement building served as Reedsburg's second hospital from 1911 until the Park Street Hospital opened in 1933. It was turned into apartments before being razed in 1968. After Safford got the mills running profitably again, he embarked in several endeavors. In 1857, he built the building known as the Old Red Barn, located on the corner of Main and Pine Street, which he used as a private barn and a carriage repair works, complete with forge. This building still stands today. He partnered with Moses Young to operate a general merchandise store at 251 East Main, a business he participated in from 1866 to 1868. By 1876, the flour mill run by Safford was grinding 600 barrels a week. In 1878, Safford became mayor of Reedsburg and served a standard one-year term. Joseph and Cornelia's son Frank started out working in his father's bank before moving on to larger banks in Minneapolis and Chicago. He amassed a large fortune and used a portion of it to build the mausoleum in 1912. The first family member interred within the mausoleum was likely Frank's wife Florence, who died in 1912. He also provided funds to the Cemetery Association, which were used to landscape the terraced amphitheater in front of the Frida Myers Nishon Chapel. Joseph died October 22, 1879, at the age of 57. 14 years later, Safford died of a stroke during a gathering of friends at his house, August 25, 1893, at the age of 62. Both were buried in the lower section of the cemetery. Joseph was later moved to the mausoleum along with his daughter Carrie, who died in 1862 at the age of 5, and Safford's first wife Harriet. Cornelia's sister Mary was moved there as well. Joseph's wife Cornelia, their son Frank, other daughter Callie, and her husband, along with their daughter Marjorie, were interned there at the time of their deaths. Marjorie was the last one entombed there when she died in 1983. Over the doorway is a brief verse from the hymn Abide With Me. The verse says, "Heaven morn breaks, earth shadows flee." Perhaps this inspired the placement of the stained glass window on the east side of the crypt, where it captures the morning sun and brings color to those resting inside.